Imagine waking up one day to find the value of your home plummeting, your dreams of affordable living dashed, and your community struggling under the weight of an unprecedented housing crisis. This is not a dystopian scenario, but a stark reality for many Floridians today. As the sun shines over its sandy beaches and palm trees sway in the gentle breeze, a storm brews in Florida's housing market. A storm that threatens the financial stability and well-being of its residents. Florida's housing market is currently characterized by an alarming surge in prices. Recent data shows a year-over-year increase of over 20% in some areas, making the dream of homeownership increasingly elusive for many. This price hike is not isolated to luxury homes, but spans across various housing segments, including middle-class neighborhoods. The reasons behind this surge are multifaceted, involving both demand-side dynamics, such as increased migration to Florida during the pandemic, and supply-side constraints, including shortages of construction materials and labor. Experts suggest that without significant interventions, prices may continue to rise, pushing the market into further instability. Comparative analyses with data from 5 years ago reveal a stark contrast. Where there was once a balanced market, there now lies a competitive arena where bidding wars are commonplace and homes sell for far above the asking price. This trend is particularly pronounced in cities like Miami and Orlando, where the influx of new residents has outpaced the availability of affordable homes. The decline in affordable housing in Florida is a critical aspect of the current crisis. Over the past decade, the number of affordable housing units has dramatically decreased, a trend exacerbated by recent economic pressures and increased land values. This shortage disproportionately affects low-income families who find themselves priced out of both the homeownership and rental markets. Government initiatives aimed at mitigating this issue have had limited success. Programs designed to encourage the development of affordable housing are often tangled in bureaucratic red tape and funding inadequacies. Critics argue that without a robust and sustained effort to build more affordable units, the situation could worsen, deepening the socio-economic divide. The impact of this shortage on families is profound, with many forced to allocate a disproportionate amount of their income towards housing, leaving little for other necessities. This financial strain not only affects their quality of life, but also places additional burdens on social services and charitable organizations struggling to fill the gap. The housing crisis in Florida has far-reaching effects on local communities. Essential services such as schools and healthcare are strained as employees in these sectors are priced out of the communities they serve. This has led to difficulties in staffing and a decrease in service quality, impacting the overall well-being of the community. Demographic shifts are also evident, with younger and less affluent residents moving away in search of more affordable living options. This migration affects the cultural and economic fabric of communities, leading to a loss of vibrancy and a decrease in consumer spending, which local businesses rely on. Moreover, the housing crisis has spurred changes in community planning and development. Some areas have seen an increase in high-density developments as a response to the housing shortage, which in turn affects local infrastructure and resources, creating a cycle of challenges that communities struggle to manage. Parallel to the escalation in home prices, Florida's rental market has seen a significant uptick in prices. Rents have risen by upwards of 30% in some locales, placing immense pressure on renters, particularly those in lower income brackets. This trend is not only worse than the national average, but also unsustainable for many residents. Anecdotal evidence from renters paints a grim picture. Families describe moving frequently in search of more affordable rents, leading to instability and uncertainty. Young professionals share stories of room sharing and downsizing, sacrificing comfort and privacy to manage living costs. This explosion in the rental market is a reflection of the broader housing issues in Florida. As people are priced out of buying, more turn to renting, increasing demand and driving up prices. This cycle of rising rents contributes to the overall affordability crisis, trapping residents in a state of financial precarity. Addressing Florida's housing crisis requires navigating a complex landscape of regulatory challenges. State and local policies have often been criticized for not adequately supporting the development of affordable housing. Zoning laws, for example, can restrict the types of developments that are permitted, limiting options for creating more dense, affordable housing units. Recent responses from policymakers include proposed changes to streamline approvals for new developments and incentives for builders to focus on affordability. However, these initiatives face their own hurdles, including opposition from communities concerned about overdevelopment and changes to the local character. Barriers to effective policy implementation are significant, involving not just logistical and financial constraints but also political and public resistance. Successful reform will require a balanced approach that considers the needs of current residents while addressing the urgent need for more affordable housing options. The housing crisis in Florida has broad economic implications, affecting not just individual home buyers but the state's economy as a whole. The surge in housing prices has eroded purchasing power, with more income being diverted to housing costs, leaving less for other forms of spending that stimulate economic growth. For home buyers, the rising prices mean that the entry barrier to homeownership is higher than ever, potentially sidelining a whole generation of potential homeowners and investors. This shift can lead to decreased housing market participation, reduced consumer spending, and a slower rate of economic growth. The state's economy, heavily reliant on a thriving real estate market, faces risks of instability, as the affordability crisis could deter new residents and businesses from moving to Florida. This scenario could lead to a slowdown in economic activities, affecting job creation and state revenues. Behind the statistics of Florida's housing crisis are real people whose lives have been dramatically affected. Personal stories from residents across the state highlight the human aspect of this crisis, revealing the struggles and resilience of those caught in the midst of these challenging times. One resident, a single mother of 3, shares her ordeal of having to move multiple times within a year due to rent hikes. Another, a senior on a fixed income, describes the anxiety of potentially having to leave a community he has been part of for decades. These stories not only illustrate the personal impact but also help to humanize the broader issues at play. These narratives are crucial in understanding the full scope of the crisis and in fostering empathy and urgency among policymakers and the public. They remind us that the housing crisis is not just about numbers and policies, but about people and their right to stable, affordable housing. Florida's housing crisis is not unique, but understanding how other states have handled similar challenges can provide valuable lessons. For instance, states like Texas and Utah have implemented successful strategies that include incentives for developers to build affordable housing and streamlined regulations that facilitate quicker construction. These comparative analyses reveal that proactive and innovative approaches can significantly mitigate housing crises. For example, Utah's focus on community-based solutions and public-private partnerships has been particularly effective in maintaining a balance between growth and affordability. Learning from the successes and failures of others can guide Florida's approach to tackling its housing crisis. By adopting best practices and adapting them to local contexts, Florida can pave the way toward a more stable and inclusive housing market. As Florida faces this daunting housing crisis, it is imperative to explore and implement viable solutions. These include increasing government funding for affordable housing, implementing more flexible zoning laws to allow for diverse types of housing developments, and fostering public-private partnerships to finance and build affordable units. Innovations in building technology, such as modular housing, can also play a role in reducing construction costs and time. Additionally, involving community members in planning processes can ensure that developments meet the real needs of residents while maintaining local character and cohesion. The path forward requires collaboration among various stakeholders: government, business, nonprofits, and communities. With concerted efforts and innovative thinking, Florida can begin to mend its housing market, ensuring it remains a place where people from all walks of life can afford to call home.